This is what it costs to own a horse in Northern California. I'll preface this video with there are a multitude of ways to afford horses. I'm going to go through my costs and what I spend on my horse at a public boarding facility, not in full-time training. So this is the main stables. I pay $1,100. I'm going to show you the tack trunk as well as the stall. This is the main tack trunk that we have in front of our stall, and then we also get another tack trunk in the tack room. So nice and big, wooden, beautiful. And I'll show you the stall. This is her stall. It's matted, lots of shavings, and you can kind of add whatever you want. Like I have buckets for her, trusty banana, automatic water, windows. Should create pretty good insulation in here. It stays quite cool during the summer, so that's great. Okay, and then grain services is extra, so I create all of the grain bags myself, and then I pay $100 a month for grain to be fed in the morning and the evening. Okay, so now we're gonna come into the tack room, and each person gets 2 slots for saddles. So I have my Western saddle here, and then I have my English stuff under here, and then 2 bridle racks. So I have my stuff right here. This is a rough estimate, but I probably spend about $350 on things like grains, feed, extra supplements each month as well. Okay, now we're gonna walk down to the arena, which is part of board. So we have one arena, it's not covered. If you are in a facility that has a covered arena, especially in California, you're probably gonna be paying a lot more. And real quick, this is the outside of the barn, cross tie areas, wash racks over to the left. I spend a lot of time tacking up here. Okay, so we're walking down to the main arena, and it's pretty big. I wish that the footing was better, so in terms of maintenance, that's not great, but can't complain about the size, and a small round pen at the opposite side. So that's the arena. And we have some horses turned out down here in these turnouts, because there's not any pasture turnouts or large turnouts, which is usually the case in California. If you find that, you're really lucky. Northern California specifically, I don't want to hear about the middle of the state. Yes, I'm sure you can find land there. Yes, it's much cheaper. A lot of different trails that we get within the board. So you can go up that way. That way's a fire road. There's trails up that way. Literally can ride for miles. So that's pretty spectacular and special about this place. Okay, so we're walking up to my horse's turnout. One thing I forgot to mention is the fact that shavings are included in the board. So that's really nice. I don't have to pay extra for that. So the stalls are bedded. Same with hay, that's included. And then turnout is included. So we'll go up here. Again, turnouts are small. Okay, we've got Danica here. Danica requires a lot of care and assistance. Shoes are $440 every 6 to 8 weeks. She has special shoes. I do things like farrier x-rays. There are so many expenses that I could go over that I'm not going to, because I'm gonna try to do kind of the basic horse expenses. Most horses need shoes. Some of them you can trim their feet, but if you're riding, especially in competition or at a harder level, you probably want shoes on your horse. You'll also need to do dental for your horse. I want to say that's around 100 to 200. Vaccinations can vary. There's some vaccines that are like 50, there's some that are 150. They're not all the time. There's some that are every 6 months, there's some that are yearly. So you'll have those expenses as well. And then any ongoing veterinary expenses, obviously, can't necessarily calculate what those are going to be for your individual horse. Danica's mad about her neighbor coming closer. But I spend about $400 a month right now because she's on Altrenagest or horse birth control. So don't buy a mare, just kidding. But I'm trying to find a more cost-effective way of doing that, and I'm planning on putting her on the weekly shot, which is much cheaper. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go about making things less expensive if you're creative, but those are a lot of the expenses that I have on a monthly or yearly basis. I know I'm missing a bunch of expenses. I personally pay to have my horse taken care of when I'm not here. So yes, she is taken care of in the board, but in terms of like hand walking and extra things and grooming and brushing. This is a DIY style boarding facility, so she's not in full-time training. So I pay a trainer that resides here who helps me in the jumpers to take care of Danica when I'm gone. So that is an additional fee, which then makes my monthly expenses more because I travel so much. If you don't have that, that's probably around $200 to $450 a month, depending on how often I'm gone. I do shows on top of that. I'm not going to add that in, but overall my expenses are probably between $3,000 to maybe $4,500 on a high if we are not including competitions, shows, things along those lines. Within that, on the high end, that probably includes a few lessons as well, my jumping lessons. So I like to leave buffer and room for that. But if I'm doing a show, I will likely have a bill that's kind of in the 6,000 range, 5 to 6,000. So it gets really expensive really quickly. But again, just basic board, I pay $1,200 for grain and everything. And you could basically call it at that if you wanted to, other than obviously your standard horse care like shoeing, vet work, etc., which adds up really quickly. I hope this was helpful. This is how much I spend. You don't have to spend that much. And I'm gonna get a ton of comments about how you could get a better facility for the cost and blah, 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 blah. Choose your own adventure. This is what I chose. My horse looks incredible. She's beautiful, she's healthy, she has an amazing farrier, we have an amazing support system, and that to me is the most important part. So long as your horse is taken care of, it doesn't really matter what the facility looks like, your horse's health is the most important. So that's what I would recommend prioritizing, and that's what I've prioritized.